Glenn Close said what mental health needs is more sunlight, more candor, and more unashamed conversation. I am Brandon T. Bailey, and this is Controversy. Podcasts are pretty scripted, and topical podcasts where people like me write down what they want to say and say it. They have their place, but this episode feels a little different because not only the topic, but for me, how close to home it really is. I'm going to do something I normally don't do. I'm going to read some statistics pretty much straight out of the book. The National Alliance of Mental Health, one of the premier organizations offering information and statistics about mental health. It said that 19.1% of adults in the United States of America, that's 1 in every 5, experience mental illness in some shape, form, or fashion in 2018. Now, that year is important because it's 2020. Towards the end, you're probably hearing this in 2021. But I'm recording this in 2020 at what we all hope is the end of a devastating pandemic. So these numbers are undoubtedly worse. But in 2018, that's 47.6 million people that struggled with mental illness in some way, shape, form, or fashion. 4.6 adults in the United States, that's 1 in every 25, experience serious mental illness. That's even more severe. That's probably not only diagnosed, but being treated very seriously. That's 11.4 million people. 16.5% of youth in the United States, ages between 6 and 17, experience a mental health disorder. Now, this one is in 2016, but that's 7.7 million youth between 6 and 17 years of age. Now, this one got my attention. 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins by the age of 14. 75% by the age of 24. Not only am I an adult dealing with my own issues and struggles and challenges with trauma and mental health, depression and anxiety, but I'm an educator in an elementary environment that serves kids between 6 and 14. 50% of all lifetime mental illnesses are built before that age group, before they leave my classroom in 8th grade. These are startling statistics, but yet we don't talk about them. Well, obviously, it has become way more acceptable to talk about issues of mental health in 2020. And I have said this over and over again. I will continue to say it. I am so glad about that. But it's been a long time coming. someone with a diagnosable mental health issue, that's depression, schizophrenia, things that can be assessed and diagnosed by a doctor, those people can still have a high level of positive mental health. That means they can still have a well balanced social emotional life. They can look normal to the average person. They can function highly in some environments. We could be walking amongst people that are struggling hard day in and day out and have no clue just how bad it is because we don't talk about that. And I say it in the book that one of the reasons that so many people don't talk about it, and there are there are a lot. There's fear, there's shame, but I believe that one of the biggest reasons we don't talk about it is because we simply don't understand. There is ignorance. There's a lack of information about what mental health issues are and what they are not. Um, and there are so many reasons I'm so excited to talk to some of the people that I have lined up to talk to on the podcast, because they can shed light on how the brain works and how these mental health issues affect our chemistry and all of these things that I don't understand. But what I do know is that we as a people don't figure out how to have greater conversation, more in-depth conversation, unashamed conversation about this subject. It is going to be devastating to a lot of people. So let me draw a couple of distinctions. Most people they hear mental health issues, disorders, mental health. We think of diagnosis, right? We think of, being diagnosed or labeled as being crazy, right? I had the misconception of mental health issues being things like schizophrenia, right? Where it's a lot more obvious that there's something going wrong, right? If you're hearing a bunch of different voices, clearly something is not right. But it was interesting because when we think about our conscience, when we think about self-talk, we really do hear other voices too. And it's so difficult to normalize that and then judge it at the same time. But the distinction I want to draw is most people, the average person struggling with anxiety or maybe even undiagnosed depression, they are experiencing a mental health challenge, something that is pushing up against, causing friction with their normal mental function and normal emotional function. For the sake of this conversation, when I am referring to mental health issues or challenges, that's what I am talking about, right? It's something that is broadly used to kind of umbrella everything together. Disorders are diagnosable, so anxiety, depression, bipolar. These are disorders that can be diagnosed. But it speaks to the severity of the challenge, right? The thing that is causing mental dis-ease. You know, let me back up. What is mental health? What is the definition? Mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own abilities. They can cope with normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. Think about how many people, their normal everyday life fits outside of one of those categories. Just daily living. We have to get to the point where it is not cliche. It is not weird. It is not a problem to talk about these kinds of challenges, not only in ourselves, but in the people around us that we love and that we care about. Because these statistics are terrifying. And coming out of this pandemic, we haven't even begun to see. You know, if I'm being honest with all of you in the TS strong community, there are times where this podcast almost didn't happen because of how incredibly uncomfortable it makes me to venture into some of these dark corners. But therapy has helped me understand that loving what is and embracing the healing process and moving forward requires that we address, that we deal with, that we face it. And in the book, in this section and chapter of the book, I say we got to do better. Here's why. Here's the controversy. Luke 22:32 says, "But I have prayed for thee, that thy faith fail not. And when thou art converted, strengthen thy brother." How many of you hearing this are thinking, I don't have those kinds of issues, or I don't know of a debilitating mental health challenge. I am not familiar with what it feels like to be depressed or under the weight of anxiety or challenging thoughts in your mind. How many of you are thinking that? Because if you are, when thou art converted, strengthen thy brother. How many of you have overcome, who have come through that storm, who have dealt with those challenges, who have faced and won the battle with your own challenging thoughts and feelings? When thou art converted, strengthen thy brother. We call the community trauma survivors and trauma supporters. And both of them are interchangeable because we need to have a better grasp on what it means to strengthen thy brother. In the first episode, I talked about some of the ways we encourage each other. And when our brain is flipped because of trauma and challenges and toxic stress and all of the things that are going on, it's really important for people to know how to get back to that reasonable mind. I tell the story of Joseph in the book, and I love the story of Joseph for so many different reasons. I mean, most people know the story from the, Technicolor Dreamcoat and Jacob giving his son the coat and all of his brothers being jealous and the conspiracy to punish Joseph because Joseph went and told them, knowing of their jealousy, knowing of their anger, knowing of their feelings towards him, he shares this dream and this dream of him being exalted and they're bowing down to him. He shares this dream with them. It makes them angry. They go tell the parents, and he tells another dream to Jacob and his and mom, and it makes me laugh because it's the lesson of watching what you share, right? And the obvious lesson in oversharing, but there's so much more to the story than that. The part that I get, and I highlighted in the book, when Joseph's brothers threw him in that pit, they could have left him there to die. And there is times where I think how much purpose, how much promise, how much prosperity will perish in the pit. Because we know the story of Joseph, because we can go back and read the story, because we've seen the ending, because we understand that the pit wasn't the place where he perished, we can then see that there's so much more to his story left to be told. Because we know that he actually fulfills his dream, because we know that his brothers and his parents ultimately come and bow down before him, because we know that he makes it to the right hand of Potiphar, we can look at that pit and say that it's only part of the process. But in the moment, it's so much bigger than that. The danger is that we find not only ourselves, but our friends and our family members and people that we care about, and we find them in the pit. And we assume that they know that there's promise left. We assume that they know that there's purpose left. We assume that they know that if they can keep pushing, that they'll actually pursue and fulfill their dream. We assume that they can see the end, that they understand that all they have to do is keep going. But sometimes the things that we say in the pit, the way that we attempt to promote pushing through and moving forward, the way that we try to encourage, the way that we try to help people out of their pit, sometimes it causes more pressure. It causes more pain. The story of Joseph, for me, has so many layers of complexity, and I think it really is a good picture of why we must do better. What if you found Joseph in the pit? What would you say? How would you say it? I have found that having grown up in church and having sat in pulpits, having ministered before thousands, I found in my own pit that the encouragement people intended to help me through the hard times added more pressure of perfect performance. And that pressure paralyzed progress. And I think that for the sake of all of the people facing these debilitating statistics, we, body of Christ, we believers, we people of faith, we educators, we have to do better caring for the mental and emotional health of those we are connected to. The inspiration for this project, for this podcast, and for the mission that ultimately propels my team and I to keep doing this, that really comes from a singular understanding. I am who I am right now. You know, I think there are two dangerous things that we do very, very, I would say subconsciously for some people. I'll speak for me. This is something that I have done. You live your life looking in the rearview mirror, or you live your life fantasizing about the future. Neither of those things carry the reality of right now. The reality of right now, whether it is good or bad, is who you are. It's where you are. The only way to get to a new place is to acknowledge and accept where you are right now. The first step in any of the 12-step programs is an acknowledgement. The reason they start with I am so-and-so and I am an alcoholic, or I am a this or I am a that, is simply to acknowledge where you are, because you can't take steps to get into a new place until you realize where you are. That's why all the maps in the mall have a "you are here." It's an opportunity to orient yourself. I am who I am right now. And it's okay to not be okay. Sitting here today recording this episode of the podcast, I'm not okay. 2020 has been rough. There have been some excellent things that have happened. There are some things I am celebrating with great excitement and great fervor. I had a child born. This project was birthed. There's just so many different things that have happened this year that have been good. But you know what? This year, this year's been tough. Family members lost, couldn't say goodbye. Struggles, relationships, and finances, and uncertainty, and I mean, you just name it. And we as a society, as a community, have faced it this year. And it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be struggling. It's okay to have a hard time. It's okay to not know what to do. It's okay to not know what to say. It's okay to say, I don't know what to say. Some of us mess up because we're trying to give advice we don't have or believe to somebody who doesn't need to hear it. But this is the space where decisions are made. I'm not okay. But I decide in these moments when I recognize that, what am I going to do to change that? What steps am I going to take? What thoughts am I going to think? What feelings am I going to pay attention to? See, because it's not about changing the negative feelings. It's about acknowledging them and seeking out their opposite. Y'all, I don't even sometimes feel like I should be the person bringing this message, because of how broken I feel sometimes. But here's what I have come to learn about God. There is a reason that He used sometimes the worst among them. There is a reason He used broken people. There is a reason that He does not seek out perfection. And so I took steps forward, even through feelings of inadequacy, even through battling that imposter complex that sometimes seeps into the back of our thinking if we don't call it. But there are too many people whom I will come in direct contact with, too many people you will come in direct contact with, and then even people who will indirectly learn of our story and make decisions based on what they hear about how we lived and how we worked and how we operated. And as I said in the very beginning, if I can help somebody as I travel along the way, then my living shall not be in vain. Byron Katie speaks of the peace that she has because she is a lover of what is. I am courting that philosophy. I'm not there yet. I am working towards the peace that passes all understanding. But until I get there, I will share every piece of valuable information I have learned along the way so that somebody else's journey will be just that much easier. Because this cross can get heavy, and we should not have to carry this shit alone. Hope I didn't just piss off all my Christian listeners. We've got to do better, folks. What mental health needs is more sunlight, more candor, and more unashamed conversation. Trauma survivors, trauma supporters, to all of you, my TS Strong community, thank you so much for investing the time to watch or to listen to another episode of the Controversy Podcast. I, your host, Brandon T. Bailey, am so grateful for your time, your attention, your energy, and your effort to support this very, very, very important mission. Listen, as we endeavor to make our show better and continue to offer incredible resources to all of you, the TS Strong community, I do have an ask. I'm going to ask that you subscribe, rate, and review the show. Let us know what you think. Let us know what we could do better. Let us know what kind of resources we can continue to offer to all of you, the TS community, so that we can all together learn to live TS Strong. All right, finally, I want to personally invite you to the Controversy Project Facebook group, A Safe Place. It is a free and exclusive community where trauma survivors and trauma supporters have gathered together to share testimonies, to share resources, and to share support and love for each other, as all of us are endeavoring to learn to live TS Strong. This is just another one of the many multimedia platforms that we have chosen to use in order to fulfill this very, very important mission. And I want to invite you to be a part of it and obviously welcome you to it in advance. Listen, in closing, until next time, I want to remind each and every one of you how important it is for you to confront your pain, how important it is for you to live your purpose, and how important it is for you to invest in your project. Till next time, peace.